industry, and we're going to see it again.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you. As a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, and to the workers and small businesses of our nation, I want to firstly thank the Minister's staff and the departmental staff for their briefings. I want to thank the many companies, unions, employer entities, workers. We listen. The Hawke-Keating years broke the previous harsh, adversarial, mutually assured destruction policy in industrial relations in this country. And then we went back with the Fair Work Act from Julia Gillard in 2009. Complex, prescriptive. The creators of this Act do not understand industrial relations. A senior practical Labor MP, who I regard very highly, said that Gillard's Fair Work Act was a backward step, damaging Australia. It's failed. Many want it changed. I know union bosses like David Noonan, Michael Ravbar, for whom I have some regard, Alex Bucarica, the ETU's Michael Wright, say we need to change. We need to get back to basics. Employer and industry groups say the same. MPs in this chamber say the same. How hard is it for workers to know their entitlements with this? It's impossible. How hard is it to run a small business these days? Very difficult. This thing justifies the Industrial Relations Club's existence. Workers now kowtow to the Industrial Relations Club. Let's go back to basics. Unions were formed in the 19th century to protect workplace basics, protect pay, protect safety, protect entitlements, protect job security, protect retirement, ensure fairness, strengthen workers' bargaining power. Then we got laws to protect workers, state and federal. Unions were doing a vital job. Politically, they were omitted from being held accountable, the way other organisations such as company directors were. After successful union campaigns, governments legislated worker protections in employment, safety, industry and health legislation. Unions were no longer needed for those basic protections because they were enshrined in legislation. Yet they had immunity from many provisions under the law and were effectively monopolies with no competition among unions within industries. As with all monopolies, this was a result of government legislation. As with all monopolies, they faced no accountability from competitors. As with all monopolies, some abused this privilege, some union bosses. In recent years, in this cosy life with no competition and no accountability, we saw abuses in the HSU, the SDA, the AWU, the CFMEU, in which union bosses stole workers' money for personal, financial and other benefits, including brothels. In the 1990s, I was good friends with Jim Lamley, the CFMEU Vice President. He shared with me his thoughts that the union, which was once strong and powerful and genuinely committed to its miners, was sloppy and not providing a service to its members, and that at times had changed. It needed to lift its game because traditional services were already legislated. As a result of neglect of union members, union membership in the private sector outside the public service is just 9% and falling. But not all large unions have a monopoly or have union bosses that want to exploit. I note the TWU and I single them out and compliment them. They've had turmoil, just like every entity, but they've sorted themselves out. They're represented here by Senator Sheldon and Senator Sterle. Excellent advocates for the trade union movement, excellent advocates for workers, excellent advocates for Australians. And the reason, I think, one of the reasons, is that the TWU contains not only employees as truck drivers, it contains small businesses. The TWU is the largest entity with the largest membership of small businesses in this country, and they work together to provide a service. I was going to discuss the abuse, the sheer abuse and exploitation, but I've done that enough of people in the Hunter Valley at the hands of the CFMEU combined with BHP combined with Chandler McLeod, which is part of the Recruit Holdings from Japan, the largest labour hire company in the world. But instead, I'll go to ask a few questions of anyone watching today. Labor titles its bill the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill. Let me give you a few facts and then ask you what you think. Firstly, the new bill omits any hint at equal pay for equal work bill, my bill that we've pushed for months now, and lifting casual pay rates. Why? The Committee of Inquiry in the Senate agreed on the need for my bill. They said, let's wait for Labor's version, not in the bill that we see before us. My bill is ready to go with 7 awards. They found no issues with it. How long do abused miners and airline staff need to wait? Let's get the experience before widening it. Why not include my bill in this? We've researched it thoroughly. And then I asked last week, and the minister's staff said they've barely started consultation. And then they did so with the perpetrators of the heinous acts in the Hunter Valley and Central Queensland. They're not interested in pay rates, in better pay. They're not interested because they've done nothing to include that. Let's look at job security. Well, job security. Look at COVID mismanagement, the phasing out of the coal industry and jobs under the Liberal Nationals and Labor, erosion of our rights and freedoms under COVID mismanagement, increasing energy prices, killing manufacturing and hurting agriculture, lack of much-needed tax reform, lack of much-needed economic reform, increasing debt, work, health and safety systems being bypassed, Australia's productive capacity being destroyed, the failure of our industrial relations systems and more. Tax reform, high immigration flooding in, putting downward pressure on wages, inflation. They're not interested in job security at all. Then let's have a look at the summit. It was a sham. It was not a genuine Hawke-Keating-style consultation. The government knew beforehand what they were going to do after the summit. The key items in this bill that they've now got in front of in the chamber were not even raised as summit topics. Joel Fitzgibbon, the previous member for Hunter, I wrote to him many times and he refused to reply to me on the abuses in the Hunter Valley. Same with his replacement, Dan Repicoli. Same with Minister Burke. Not interested in job security, not interested in fairness, not interested in the law. Now we've got a bill before us that is another 249 pages, plus government amendments, 150 of them, 150 amendments to their own bill in the lower house. That's another 34 pages. They're going to just add more complexity, make it thicker, make it more difficult for people to understand. These 150 amendments confirm that the bill was hastily introduced, not thought through. If there's so many amendments and so many flaws can be identified in such a short time, how many will implementation in the real world expose? And who will pay for that? Workers will pay for that. Small business will pay for that. This is so flawed, the government is making amendments to its own amendments. This is a spit and hope bill. When the Australian Building and Construction Commission was introduced, there were months of consultation. When it was abolished, there was none. The same should apply to the whole bill. It needs debate, it needs to be deferred and considered properly. And who pays for this mess? The people, union members, small businesses, workers, communities and the nation. Let's have a look at the bill now. 27 parts, 13 substantive. Some are simply tidying, good. Some are worthy improvements, minor but worthy, good. Some big issues not thought through. Some big issues thought through yet deceptively hidden because they don't want the people to see it. Some issues designed deliberately to confuse and to obfuscate, all slapped behind a false labelling of enabling a pay rise and more secure jobs. This is what you get out of the south end of a north-facing bull. There is no mandate for stuff that's been hidden, no mandate at all. On the 22nd of November 2022, Small Business Minister Julie Collins failed to answer 2 core questions about how many small businesses will be drawn into wage bargaining and how much it'll cost. They add another definition to the already 140 definitions of small business across government departments. The government tells the people of Australia that the whole rationale behind this bill is to get wages moving. Yet there's no specific detail. How, when, who? Nothing concrete, just broad, fluffy statements, typical of the Labor, Greens, Teal coalition governing the Senate. Labor claims it will improve the bargaining position of small business and workers and in small business. So why do thousands of small businesses oppose it? Could it be due to this? Why are union bosses given the power to veto to frustrate the bargaining process? Even if employees agree with the employer, they still can be vetoed by union bosses, remote union bosses. Why are smaller employers locked into a process they do not support if they have a headcount of more than 19 people, including those who choose to work only a few hours a week? Why isn't the full-time equivalent used? As a result, large businesses can negotiate conditions smaller businesses cannot compete with. That aids large businesses to kill off smaller competitors, leading to fewer jobs. Plus, small businesses lack the resources to deal with all the red tape. The abolition of the Australian Building and Construction Commission illustrates the government's aims and intent, rewarding union bosses with power. That's what's behind this bill. That means a return to the damaging days of industrial thuggery. Remember the BLF? The Dyson-Hayden Royal Commission revealed so much thuggery in the CFMEU. Court cases and criminal convictions. Criminal convictions! The ABCC worked, Labor abolished it, Coalition reintroduced it, Labor is now abolishing it. Millions of dollars are fined. What will happen to them? Violent behaviour, industrial blackmail, killing small businesses, restrictive work practices that cost taxpayers an additional 30% on building costs. Who's going to enforce the law now? This bill will, in the long run, harm unions. It gives more power to union bosses over members and generally in the community and over industry. Monopolies discourage responsibility and competitiveness of service, and they reduce accountability. This bill entrenches the monopoly and makes it stronger. Unions may receive a short-term boost, yet long-term it will accelerate, sadly, the slide of declining union membership. Look in Queensland. Premier Palaszczuk aims to kill the Red Union. She is protecting the Queensland Nursing Union, who are big donors to Labor. She is trying to kill the Red Union that is starting freely because she wants to kill any competition to her union bosses that donate. This is not about higher pay and job security. It's about giving union bosses power over industries and over companies' employers and over workers. Instead of returning to the pre-Hawke days, we need the reverse. We need to restore the primacy of the workplace, the employer-employee relationship, with employees free to bring in unions when they choose. The big picture, industrial relations needs comprehensive reform. We need to get away from the industrial relations adversarial approach that's plagued this country. It locks managements, executives, union bosses, consultants, lawyers into industrial relations games, not into improving businesses. Instead of having the brightest and best lawyers and accountants focus on how we can smash the opposition in this country, we need to focus on how we can smash the opposition in South Korea and Japan and China. They're our overseas competitors. Industrial relations reform needs to be comprehensive. Focus on the primacy of the employer-employee relationship. Return to the days of Hawke-Keating, at least for a start. People need to focus on their business, not the corporation. Always around the world, workplaces, people focus on their workplace. That's what people love. We need an industrial relations reform that develops responsibility for the business. We need a short bill. Instead of this monstrosity, we need about 20 pages of basic entitlements. And instead of getting off the hook through lawyers with this monstrosity, we need clear provisions that if these basic provisions are violated, people go to jail. Workers are getting abused in this country. Small businesses are getting abused in this country. We need simple provisions, severe penalties. Well, let's consider the Teals. David Pocock as a Teal in the Labor Greens Teal Senate governing coalition. The governing coalition in this Senate is Labor, Greens, Teal. 15 amendments he announced on Sunday. The government was going to do 9 anyway. 4 are corrections, another 4 are corrections to government oversights in the bill. The job seeker rate is irrelevant to the bill, horse trading. That leaves 1 amendment that Senator Pocock initiated. Union bosses will still be able to drag small business into multi-employer bargaining and get out those businesses will have to engage in and to get out of multi-employer bargaining, those businesses will have to engage in expensive litigation. Welcome to the new Labor, Greens, Teals coalition running this country, where the love of power is more important. In conclusion, instead of the lies and pretense of this bill, we need honesty. Instead of boosting union bosses' power, we need to make the employer-employee workplace relationship the focus, to get Australia talent to the fore, to make us competitive again. Instead of adding more complexity and regulations, we need comprehensive industrial relations reform. Simplicity, honesty, efficiency, protection, real protection. This mess bypasses protections, leaves workers vulnerable, exposed. Above this building, we have one flag. We are one community, we are one nation, and we work like hell to protect workers, protect small business, and restore honesty in governance. Thank you, Mr. Deputy President.